everyone, and welcome to Bourbon Bytes Whiskey Reviews with a gaming twist. I'm Clifton. Cheers, and welcome to another Thursday night live stream. Some of you guys followed me over. I was live on Twitch doing a bit of pre-gaming, which is something that I'm going to start doing on Thursday nights. So if you want to see any gaming streams, make sure to follow me, twitch.tv/Bourbon Bytes. We played some Fall Guys. I didn't do too hot, but it was a lot of fun. So thanks to those of you that followed me over there. Tonight we have another very special guest joining us. I love bringing guests onto the show. I have a couple more lined up for this year. Hopefully we get to do as many as we did last year, because I can't believe how many amazing, incredible guests, from master distillers to founders. We had such a cool lineup last year, and I'm hoping for an even better 2022. So want to give a couple shout outs to people here in the chat. I saw y'all were pre-gaming a little bit for in the little in between my Twitch stream and this one. Fred, of course, was here. What's up, Fred? Fred is a patron of the show and just a friend of the show in general. Glad to see you, Fred. Swan is here. He is about to be moving not across the country, but about to be moving from his location in Kentucky. So Swan, good luck with the move if we don't talk before then, and best of luck at your new place. I see Zopher in the chat. Zopher was hanging with us on Twitch. Zopher is a patron of the show, and glad to have you here. Steven Sussman, good to see you. Donnie is our mod tonight. So he has a question to start. He said, the whiskey is named Dexter, and the guy's name is Doug Hall. Yes, so it'll all be clarified once we bring him on. Don't worry. But good to see you, Donnie. And Sugar Kitty's here. Sugar Kitty is a Bite Club member, which is my membership program here on YouTube. If you want to become a member, you can join for $2 a month, and you get access to some exclusive gaming perks and cool emojis in the chat. If y'all want to send your emojis, go ahead and get them sent out now. But with that, I see a couple other people coming in. I see Brandon in the house, another mod here, and the original OG Bourbon Wrench, Trev. Good to see you, Trev. Wow, so many people showing up. Okay, without further delay, let's go ahead and bring on our guest. Please welcome to the show, co-founder and CEO of Dexter Bourbon and Brew Custom Whiskey. This guy is an absolute beast when it comes to his titles. I'm getting them pulled up here. I actually forgot to refresh this page. I have them written out. Hold on. I got to get this right, guys. Okay, hold on. Okay. He is an inventor, a researcher, an author, an educator, an engineer, and a whiskey maker. Please welcome Doug Hall. Doug, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Clifton.
So I was reading, I was stalking your LinkedIn a bit, so I'm sorry I pulled all those things from. But dude, you have such a great career. Just getting to this point. You've had so many other experiences in life. So I guess I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself in terms of not necessarily the full journey, because it's a lot, but how did you get to becoming the CEO of Dexter and Brew?
Well, I'm old, so that's part of it. So I'm a chemical engineer by education, Procter & Gamble 10 years, and then I created a place called the Eureka Ranch, where we invent for major companies around the world. And when you own a company, you get to pick the things you want to work on, and I like whiskey, so I worked with Diageo and stuff for them, and then Edrington for many, many years, the company that makes Macallan, the most expensive whiskey in the world. And it was on one of those times with them, because of course their whiskey, part of what makes their Scotch whiskey so amazing is that it's finished in sherry wood casks from Spain. And I said, well, geez, is that like marketing BS or is that like real? And the guys go, we're sitting at dinner over in Perth, Scotland, and one guy goes, it's 70%. Another guy says, no, hell no, it's 80%. 80% of it. So I say, you mean so the stills don't matter? He said, pretty much, but don't let that get out, okay? But the key is the wood, because 70% of the flavor comes from the wood. Well, I'm a little slow, but I heard that, and I'm like, man, that's kind of cool. I wonder if you could really get expert at that. And so about 6 years ago, I'm running the ranch, and I've done TV and books and all this foolishness. And I had this guy, Joe Gergash, a young fella, who's just brilliant. And I said, dude, I got an idea. You want to mess with this? He says, sure. So we bought a bunch of equipment, way too much. And we started playing, and we ran 3,000 experiments. Okay, so we're not real smart, okay? But we can fail fast and cheap really quickly, okay? And after we ran 3,000 experiments, we win 2 of 6 double golds at the North American Bourbon and Whiskey Championship. And I go, damn, this might be pretty good. and so I said, hey, Joe, you want to form a company? Let's do this thing. He says, sure. And so that's we started. And the first thing we did is is I was still working with Macallan. I worked for them for over 20 years. And I said, hey, you guys want to do bourbon? Because bourbon's big. And they said, sure, what do you got? I said, well, what if I do this? And working with them, we came up with an idea for a product called Noble Oak, which is available all over the country. Mm-hmm. It's crushing it right now. It was so blessed. I mean, it's amazing how nice people have been to us. And it's a double oak bourbon finished with sherry oak casks using our woodcraft finishing. And sure enough, the thing just takes off. It's doubling every 3 to 6 months. And then after about 2 years of that, I said, let's do some of our own stuff. We had some ideas for things that we wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And we own part of the brand and, we're partners with them. And so we started it. And then this COVID craziness came, which kind of slowed things down a little bit. But it's been an amazing ride.
Oh, that's awesome. So I didn't realize, so you guys are really new in terms of like the company itself. I didn't mention earlier, but you guys are based out of just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. Right. I've heard like it's kind of becoming an up and coming like whiskey area. Is that true? Are you seeing a lot of different brands kind of come up in that area?
Yeah, it is. Our buddies over at New Riff are not far from us here. And of course, the heritage is such that in the 1800s, because that's what we kind of try to think of ourselves as like 1850, 1860, a pre-prohibition. And back then, 85% of the whiskey in America came from Cincinnati because it was the sixth biggest city after like Philadelphia, all the colonial ones. And so this was the place that did it. And then after Prohibition, it went south with the, medicinal alcohol permits in Kentucky. And so it's got a big heritage around here, and we're right in the middle of, all of this. And so, we got going, and so we've really focused ourselves on being like the 1800s, a time that's really forgotten by the others because all the other brands really, they were created after Prohibition is when they came to life.
Right.
And so we celebrate the pre-Prohibition time when all whiskey was custom.
Gotcha. Very cool. I think that's something that's not really talked about a lot, like pre-Prohibition whiskey. I actually just hosted a trivia match on another YouTube channel here. It's Bourbon Night. And one of my questions was about, during Prohibition, there were really only 6 distilleries that were legally licensed. So everything that was active before that, either they went on pause or they just, fell apart. So I think it's an area that I think I need to learn more about pre-Prohibition era whiskey.
Well, and see, the other thing you got is, remember, in the 1800s, there were no distilleries. There were farmers. And the farmers, there was no money out this way. In the Ohio Valley, land that originally Ben Franklin, in fact, 63 years ago, he put together the deal for the Ohio region. We got the deal with the king, and this area, it was farmers, and so they would everybody had a still, and they turned their grain into whiskey, and whiskey was the currency. I mean, you paid the preacher, in whiskey, and whiskey was the cash that they used. And so you didn't have the distilleries. And so it was all, farmers doing it. And then the barrel blenders happened, in 1850, I guess there were 109 in downtown Cincinnati, where you would go in and you'd bring your clay jug and you'd say what you liked, and they'd mix together some barrels and make you, the whiskey that was yours. And all whiskey was custom back then. And there was another guy doing this. You might have heard of him. His name is a grocer named John Walker. He was doing the same thing over in Scotland that, of course, became Johnny Walker. So it's kind of a cool time that not a lot of people know about.
That's crazy. I'm just catching up on the chat here. Adriana Whiskey Mountain, she says, Wahoo, a scientist. So she's our resident scientist. She is doing some great work in Alzheimer's research. So we appreciate here. She has another amazing whiskey YouTube channel here. I also see some very observant viewers. So Steven Sussman says he has classic gaming cabinets in the back. They noticed your arcade machines back there. Tell us about that. Are you a gamer?
I'm terrible.
Oh, me too. So I don't claim to be good.
I am a wannabe, but no, I'm in our tasting room at the Eureka Ranch. So it's on the same, where we got a cool place here. We got a lake out back, and I have an old house next door, and then we built this, and the distillery's here on the property. So this is the Eureka Room, which is also our tasting room. that we've got. And if you look up here, you got a Spider-Man up
I was
there.
gonna say that's like a
And
very eclectic group of
yeah,
decorations. I love it. I
yeah,
freaking love it.
that's what happened when old people, gather stuff. We just put together cool shit that we like. So.
So that's awesome. So you mentioned Eureka Ranch. So is that the kind of overall like brand or company behind all of this?
No, well, it's two separate. I mean, I own both of them, but that's a
Okay.
separate company that does, helps everybody from Nike to Disney invent ideas, and then Brain Brew Ventures is a separate thing, and that's where we do the whiskey, and now with the Dexter Bourbon Company, which this Dexter product, which is what I'm drinking here.
I was about to pour a glass of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so in January, it was one of those COVID projects. How do we make the best effing whiskey in the world? When we're sitting here making hand sanitizer, we gave away 500,000 bottles of it. I'm like, geez, we got to do something. And so we started to work on this thing, and we put it out January last year. And I'm like, geez, I don't know if anybody's going to buy it or not. And so I went to the guys. I was texting. It was a Saturday morning, January 2nd. I remember. I texted them. I said, anybody buying it? Because, you couldn't line up back then or anything. They said, what do you mean? We've got 3 bottles left. We'll be sold out in under an hour.
Oh, wow.
Go, damn, that's pretty cool. So so then we were busy with Noble Oak. So Father's Day, we put it out again, and it sold out again. And I said, hey, I think I figured this out. This one's pretty good. And so we put it out, and it just crushed it. We're in Kentucky. We're in New Hampshire. We're in Minnesota, and here in Southern Ohio. And we set up some goals for it, and it did 3 times what we were supposed to do.
Wow.
That was just like ridiculous. I mean, even Costco picked us for Kentucky.
Oh, that's
This
awesome.
is so crazy. This is stupid, man. This is just crazy. I mean,
for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, so we're talking about this Dexter 3 Wood Bourbon. It's a straight bourbon whiskey. So do you guys distill this on property, or is this from an outside source?
So we're an 1800s barrel blender. That's how we like to think of ourselves.
Okay.
And so that they would take the whiskey, and if they had like a Madeira cask, they might finish it in that, and they did different things. That's what the barrel blenders did, and they would make the market for it. And so this is finished with 200-year oak, old reclaimed barn boards that we clean up, which are epic because they're all air dried, and then cherry wood and maple wood, all air dried, no kiln dried. That's kind of the secret to our stuff, is that you've got at least 2 years air dried. And it's named after Edmund Dexter, who was one of the most famous of the barrel blenders. He lived on 4th Street. Charles Dickens and King Edward VII came and visited with him. So he was kind of a serious guy. That's how we named it after him.
Did they come visit him because he had whiskey?
Well, he had very good whiskey, actually. Yeah, he had exceptionally good whiskey. And in fact, Dickens, just after having been there, sent a letter to Washington Irving about this amazing new cocktail he had, which was basically a smash, is what we would call it today. It had some lemon, it had orange in it, which is interesting, and then a little bit of mint with it. So it was like a sour julep combination.
Gotcha. Our friend Swan in the chat, he says he's been hesitant to try new brands, but he tried Dexter and loved it. You guys are killing it. So we have a fan here in the chat.
Oh man, you're awesome. Thank you. We're diddly squats here. We don't have the trucks of money that the big guys have. And we have been. I'll tell you a thing that when I was at P&G for 10 years, and at Procter & Gamble, they teach you make a better product and then tell the world about it. And so we spent probably 4 years doing nothing but learning how to make great products. And then we started to do the marketing. And we work hard. I mean, it's priced at basically about $50, depending upon the store. Because we've got a thing that we're whiskey drinkers, not collectors. And fine for people who want to collect. But, I like to keep it under $50 because, I just want to keep it.
I mean, that's a great price point, especially being, a newer brand. I think a lot of times people price themselves out of the market. Like Swan was saying, a lot of new brands, they start out, $70, $80. And you're like, do I take that risk? But I mean, at $50, I mean, it's worth grabbing a bottle. So with the actual finishing, with these 3 different types of woods, are you using are they going into full barrels, or are you doing staves? How does the finishing work?
So a big thing for my whole life has been, my dad worked with a guy named Dr. W. Edwards Deming, who's a quality expert who created Toyota in Japan after World War II. And his big thing was driving variation out of the process. And so what we did at the beginning is we would put the staves in the barrels, but then if it was going through the winter, it would go slow. The summer, it goes hot. If you have a hot spell, and we're coming on, we got freaking every barrel's different. And while that's cute, it's a crappy way to run a company.
Sure.
So Joe and I said, that ain't going to work. You're not going to ever be able to get big. I mean, you can have some boutique barrels. So we take the wood, and we've done literally 3,000 experiments. And we cut the staves, sometimes more open grain, sometimes more closed grain. And we put the whiskey in the wood, and then we warm it and chill it, just like, in winter, when it gets cold, it goes into the wood. When it gets warm, it comes out. But we control it to within 1/10 of a degree, the highest precision of anybody in the industry, so that we can get the same taste every single time. And that's how we do it. So we buy because, frankly, I can't make it for the same price.
Sure.
But then we change the value. In fact, the distributor in Kentucky says, what I love about you guys is you're not just buying stuff, you're actually you're doing something. I said, well, that's what they did. That's what Edmund Dexter did. He didn't just buy it. He took it and blended it or put it together or aged it with other woods. And that's what we're trying to do.
So do you guys, I mean, if you guys, don't disclose this, do you know like which state you guys are buying it from, or is that just kind of, do we know that or not?
Yeah, we get it from MGP mostly, although we've got some Kentucky sources too. It just depends on the market. Again, I want to keep that price under $50.
Of course.
And I'm going to do everything I can to keep the price under $50.
So we're big MGP fans here, so that's good news. I saw a question about the 200-year oak. I've heard that before. Is that referring to the actual age of the trees, or what gives it that 200-year like name?
Well, it's a minimum of 200. It could be 300 for all we know. So these are barns. Back then they would have cut the trees from virgin forests. They would have been about 200 years old when they cut them. And these are from barns that are 100, 150 years old. We cut off a 1/4 inch on all sides, clean them up. We've actually tested the wood, and it's actually cleaner than today's new American oak because there were less pollutants in the air. And it gives that, if you taste that, I mean, check that finish out, man. I mean, it's just, and I'll be honest with you, we're a craft distillery, and Joe and I fortunately like the same things. So we like a long finish. And we like to have ours with ice. And so we make them so they don't collapse with ice. Now, they still taste great neat. And if you want to do that, that's fine. But it's our damn company, damn it. So we're going to make stuff that we love. If we don't love it, we don't sell it. It's that simple.
So proof-wise, this is 50.3% ABV. So 100.6. I'm bad at math. Yeah, 100 points. So that's why I'm not a chemical or an engineer in any aspect. But so like you said, it does stand up with that higher proof. It's not just a typical, 80 proof whiskey we see. So you guys are definitely amping up in that category as well, which I always appreciate. I love a bit of a higher proof. So it kind of, even neat, it's like right up my alley.
Yeah. So we got really fortunate. There's a guy named Paul Paco, runs Ultimate Spirits. He's got a newsletter in that. He's kind of the guy that the big companies trust more than anybody in competitions. He's probably number one, and number two is probably San Francisco. And he named he scored all the whiskeys, and we were selected as one of the 12 best bourbons in the world, which is just kind of ridiculous. It's crazy for these guys.
I mean, that's awesome. Hey, it's good for the label.
But that's, and the folks have been, I got like 20 stores that want to do barrel picks with us now.
Awesome.
Just in central Kentucky. So, it's, make a better product. Spend the time on product, man. It's product. Forget the marketing. Yeah. I mean, the marketing's great, but product.
No, it's actually really, really solid. Now, these guys, I told you these guys are a bit nerdy, so we're getting to the details. If there's anything they're not able to answer, then of course we're happy to skip over it. Fred is asking, what is the average age of the whiskeys that went into Dexter?
Well, it's a straight bourbon, so it's at least 2 legally.
Right.
And just like Edmund Dexter would do, there's, and I don't know what's in this bottle, but because we will take barrels and we put them together to a taste that we want to start from.
Sure.
And so there'll be some 6 or 7 year old, there'll be some 2-year, probably a lot of 3 and 4, but it's whatever we need to get it to that taste that we want to be. And that's our focus, is on the taste as opposed to on the marketing. we're into taste and and the finish. You know, I mean, that's what we designed for, and that's what we live on. Is to do that. So it varies. I mean, different bottles will be different just because of. See, if you've gotten some and you've had a real hot summer, you know, especially around here, we get a really bad hot summer that's scorching hot, and that can be like 3 years.
Right.
We get you get a super cold winter, and it's like no aging goes on for 5 months. You know. So
yeah, well, like you said earlier, you guys.
There's more to it. There's more to it than just the number. You
sure.
know, it has to do with the environment.
Yeah, well, so I mean, like you said, you guys are more of focused on like the finishing and the blending and things like that. I think that's an art in itself, and I think that's really something that should be highlighted as well. So you said 3,000 different experiments. Was that with different oaks that you were using, or what were some of the not necessarily failed ones, but what were some of the more crazy ones that you guys tried out?
So we did. We'll talk about it later about custom whiskey. So we've done all kinds of woods, because if the flavor comes from the wood, you know, you can make barrels with wood, but you can't make barrels with cherry wood. You can't make barrels with maple wood; they'll leak. And so we've played with a lot of different woods and played with a lot of different cooling. But the biggest thing is the cooperage process with the wood. What we learned early on was almost all whiskeys, except for the big guys, are in kiln dried barrels. And so my minor is in pulp and paper. And so for the geeks of you out there, whiskey making is paper making backwards. When you make paper, you put heat to take the lignins out, to take the cellulose to make paper. When you make whiskey, you heat it to extract the lignins, to set off the chemical reaction, and you run it through the char to take stuff out. And so that's the focus that we've got. And so what you really find is that the air-dried oak is critical. The problem is you can't buy air-dried barrels. And so what happens is this stuff takes forever. It takes forever to age, if it ever does. And that's one of the big challenges us craft guys have, is you can't get it. And we've done everything from Japanese oak. I mean, we've got a wheat with Japanese oak that is just a freaking die for.
Oh, wow.
You know, and it's like, you know, wheat is like the Pinot Noir of whiskey. And it's just elegant and precision. It'll be out this spring. It's a Dexter great grain set. But there's so much more to it. And if you're compulsive, as Joe and I are, you know, you slowly but surely learn some things.
Absolutely. So shout out to Joe in the chat, or Independent Joe in the chat. He's dropping links to learn more about Brain Brew Whiskey. Yeah, we're going to take a look at the website here in a minute when we talk about their custom whiskey. But I guess before we move on to that, let's take a look at Paddle Wheel.
First off, what do you think? What do you think of the Dexter? What do you think of the Dexter?
So I really think that, like, I love that higher proof. So I think that's the big thing that stands out to me. I think it does have a really long finish for, you know, I mean, I guess I'm not skilled enough in knowing how much the 200-year oak and the maple wood impact it. But I mean, for $50, it's very, very solid. So,
well, that's what gives you the finish. That long finish. I've had Ken Greer, McAllen, dear friend, worked for many, many years at his house. I've had Scotch from like 1910, which would have had the same kind of old wood to it. And it has that same long character to it, which is like, you can't get it anywhere else.
Yeah. And I think just even in addition to that long finish, I think just overall, it's super balanced. I think a lot of times, you know, you see whiskeys that are like, I guess, spiky in certain directions, whether it's the, you know, the corn grain standing out or whatever, but this just is very, very well-rounded. And that oak, that finish really does complement it as well. So I think, I mean, yeah, I'm a big fan of this one so far.
So there was a guy named Jerry Thomas. He wrote the first book on cocktails in 1862. And he talked about that with a cocktail or with a whiskey, you shouldn't taste this and this and this. It should come together. You know, 1 + 1 becomes 100. It becomes this new thing. And so we work very hard to not have, you know, a collection of, sometimes you taste whiskeys and you get speed bumps. You get this bite and then this bite and this bite. And that, to me, that's not to our taste. Those that like it, that's fine. I'm cool with that. But that's not our house style.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said you were a whiskey fan before you started this. Are there any like favorites? You mentioned Macallan. Are there any other favorites that maybe in the more American ones that maybe these guys would be more familiar with that you enjoy drinking when you're not drinking this?
So So I'll be honest. When I started on Macallan, it cost $38. Okay, that's how long ago it was, and it's
That's
stupidly
awesome.
expensive now.
I'm
And back
jealous.
then, bourbon was 95% corn, and I thought it was crap. I didn't like it. I didn't
Gotcha.
like it. It was a one note thing. It was simple. And then you had Blanton's did the single barrel, but they took
Mhm.
real honey barrels that had a lot more complexity to it.
Mhm.
And I remember sitting, I think I was in Singapore or somewhere working on something, and I said, "Oh, let me try bourbon again." And I had a Blanton's, and I said, "Holy crap!" And I was with a guy named John Muldoon, and I said, "John, the bourbon guys have figured this out. They're gonna come. They're gonna come get you." And he said,
Mhm.
"That'll never happen. Never happen." Now we're about 2 or 3 years from bourbon becoming bigger than
I was gonna
Scotch
say we're in the middle of a
worldwide.
bourbon boom right now. It's
Yeah, and
absolutely
so
crazy.
when it went to the complexity, because I like big flavor, but not a
Mhm.
single. I want complexity to it and a
Mhm.
clean finish. And while I love Scotch, some of the finishes are a bit challenging, for you. And
Yeah.
I really now of course I love Macallan because the sherry looks just epic and Highland Park are amazing. But
Mhm.
but so it was really Blanton's that really opened me up, and to this day they're of course part of the Sazerac company, and you know in 3 different competitions we like our rye got a 97, frickin' Sazerac gets a 98. In that
So
bourbon
close,
competition where we had
but
two
still,
of
like,
the six, the frickin' jerks, they put three in and they took best of show. And so it's
gotcha.
like they are I have the greatest respect for Palmer. I have the greatest respect for what they do, but I so want to beat the crap out of them because to me, what they're doing is just epic. What they're doing,
Mhm.
it's just
Yeah.
amazing the stuff that whole
Yeah.
house is
Just put a horsey on top of Dexter. You'll
doing.
might beat him next year.
Costs too much. Charge an extra $10. Forget it.
Oh
No.
yeah. Good point. Good point. Okay, so we have two more bourbons here, both of which, I mean, especially the last one. I'm very excited for the last one. But next, we're going to move on to Paddle Wheel. So this one
Yeah.
is also finished with the 200-year oak and European oak. Can you tell us a little bit about this? Was this before Dexter or after?
Yeah. This came first, and
Okay.
it's 95 points. This was originally what when we first did it, we said, when Charles Dickens comes to visit, what do you serve him?
Okay.
Okay. That's what we were thinking.
Mhm.
And the European oak would have been a Madeira cask, which Madeira was big in the 1800s.
Mhm.
And the 200-year oak, of course, the 200-year oak. But we've taken the proof down to 90 proof, and it's 21% rye as opposed to 36% rye. And the idea for this product was to be, 55% of bourbon is consumed mixed. People don't realize that only 10% is neat. 55%.
Oh
I'm
yeah, for
again, I'm a
sure.
data geek, so we
Yeah,
measure
of
everything.
course. Yeah,
Um,
I realize we're the minority out here.
I know. So we decided to make a product that could really stand up to the cocktails and crush it with cocktails.
Mhm.
And so then when we did Dexter, we said, okay, Dexter, $50. I don't know. My mom's family came from Thurso, Scotland, and we're really cheap. $50 is too expensive to use in cocktails. Not just me. Okay. Now I
Mhm.
know there's rich people that want to do that, but to me, Dexter is the sipper, and Paddle Wheel at $35 is a product that you can mix. You can have it neat. It's got a bold flavor to it, so it stands up to the cocktails. It's so smooth that you can do an old fashioned with a third of the sugar instead of a
Mhm.
half ounce. You use just a teaspoon of simple syrup, and so you know it's the bars use it for cocktails all over the place. So
Oh wow. Yeah, it's really sweet, like you said. You definitely wouldn't want to add too much sugar to it.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't quite have the longer finish, like you said. This is meant more for cocktails. But I can see this working super, super well in like an old fashioned. That's my go-to whiskey cocktail. I make them probably a couple times a week.
yeah,
So,
and so you're clear, the bricks level of these two products is almost the same, but the
mm,
perception of sweetness
okay,
is what you're getting. You're getting a perception of it, but it's actually not sweet from a sugar from a brick standpoint,
Sure, yeah. Brandon says 31 in the chat. Yeah, thank y'all so much for tuning in. Everyone that's watching here live and everyone that's going to watch the replay. A lot of people can't stay up this late, which I appreciate you staying up to do this stream. I promise I won't keep you more than 30 more minutes or so.
That's fine. That's cool.
But thank y'all so much for watching.
I've got a whole distillery of whiskey here, so I'm good.
There you go. You got the nice fireplace, Magic. How's the weather out there right now? I know that some of the southeast is getting a big snowstorm this weekend.
Yeah, it is cold.
Cold.
Yeah, it's nasty. It's nasty.
Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles, so it's pretty okay here right now. But but I don't miss. I mean, I do miss the snow, but at the same time, like I don't miss these snowstorms, these ice storms, because they're really dangerous. So. Hopefully everyone out there is staying safe. I know some people in the chat are in the Carolinas and in Tennessee, so y'all stay safe, stay bunkered in.
So I just saw a question here. So Brix is, they said, what is Brix? Brix is the sweetness level, the sugar, and so what you do is, and the problem is to measure it, you have to have an expensive piece of equipment, and again, being a techno geek, when Joe comes, he runs operations, I run the business side. When he comes and says, I need new toys, I'm like, cool, let's get new toys. And so we have the fancy alkalizer that can measure alcohol level and sugar level, and it corrects for them because they can distort each other. And so we track that. And then in our tasting room, interestingly, we actually list on our menu the Brix level and the percent alcohol in the finished cocktail, because we find that really directs people to what kind of cocktail they want and how booze forward they want it. And I'm thinking that in the future, just like bitterness units with craft beer, that Brix is going to become the way we talk about the cocktails. But you got to measure the finished cocktail.
I was not familiar with that term, so thank you, Whiskey Mountains, for asking that question. That's super interesting. I'd never seen anyone, I guess, clarify that. So that's awesome. That's something I need to maybe keep an eye out for, seeing just in more, and not just whiskey, but even just other situations. That's so interesting. That's the scientist coming out. I think she's the scientist in the group, like I said, so she gets excited about stuff like that. I'm
so the coolest thing we've got though is the next product you got there.
That's yeah. Well, before we move to that, real quick, I'm seeing a couple people asking about where they can find this, because people are looking for it. So Pinch Hitter Whiskey Lounge asks, may have to drive up to New Hampshire and grab a Dexter. So in terms of distribution, where are you guys at right now?
So right now we're in New Hampshire. Paddle Wheel and Dexter are both up there, as well as our custom whiskey kits. Mm-hmm. And then we're throughout Kentucky, Minnesota, and in the Cincinnati area. And then there's a few states we can ship to. We can ship to DC. I mean, there's a couple of states that you can ship to.
Yeah, Scott was asking specifically about Texas. Can you guys ship to Texas?
Yeah, sadly we can't right now. But you know how it works. You find somebody in one of those states, a friend from when you were younger, and send an unmarked box. I mean, that's kind of how the system works.
Yeah, we have ways to make it happen. But
yeah, I know. We can't do it, but you can.
Gotcha. So, like you said, next product is the one that intrigued me the most about you guys. So, as you see the name up here, Brew Custom Whiskey. So, I had to do it virtually because I'm, not in Ohio. But can you tell us a little bit about what that process is? Like, what I guess. Well, what is Brew Custom Whiskey? So Joe and I put together the products. We send them to North American Bourbon. We win, and then we start winning all kinds of awards. And I go, damn, this is so cool, making your whiskey and then doing it, right? I bet everybody would like this. How about if we allowed everybody to have their own whiskey? Well, sounded like a simple idea. Oh my God. The TTB never imagined something like this. The states didn't allow this. Oh, it just blows your mind what it took to do it. But the basic idea is returning bourbon to its roots, of the people, by the people, for the people. Just like in the 1800s, when you go in with your jug to Dexter's shop, you can get your own bourbon. And so we do it two ways. We have a live experience that you can do, or a kit that you can do it, where you go through, and we invented these cool little ladles that takes you through, and you learn what Bob DiGiano of Macallan taught me on how to bring barrels together and make your own spirit. You have 6 whiskeys to start with, 3, the great oaks, American oak, European oak, and 200-year oak, and then 3 artisans, where you've got cherry wood, maple wood, and smoked. And you can make hundreds of thousands of different options from this. And then we also have a Bourbon Wizard, which the Eureka Ranch folks have built these for P&G and for Nike and all kinds of people over the years. An artificial intelligence app where you answer 13 questions,
and it creates a recipe for you.
Yeah, so I have it pulled up here just because I was so fascinated by this. So, like you said, 13 questions. You can do this for yourself on their website. You can just go to brainbrewwhiskey.com/wizard. But like you said, you see the 6 different ones you're starting with, the different oak finishes. And then you kind of tailor it to your flavor profile. So, it asks you how much smokiness you like. Do you want a more, sweeter whiskey? Do you want a, I have my results on this. I'll show you guys in a minute, but y'all know I went for the biggest and boldest flavors. So I wanted it smoky. I wanted it with a long finish. I had to go with the longest finish here. But this is really cool. So what kind of went into making these questions? Was it the specific types of oak
just stupid amounts of experiment. It's the same thing like all science. A lot of experiments over and over and over again, testing with people, and then running it out and seeing how they do it, and then doing it again, until you program it. And so you can use this to get your own bottle, a custom bottle. We think of it as it's like having your own single barrel by the glass or by the bottle. Because in bars, we've got a blending machine that we put on back bars that if you're in a bar, you can go up to the bar, do it. There's a QR code that comes up.
I was going to show that blending machine is super cool. I wanted to find, there we go. The Dexter 1862.
Yeah, and it pours your bourbon for you. So you can have your own bourbon on tap in bars and restaurants. It's so It's so fun, man. It's so cool.
Well, you said you're an inventor at heart, and I absolutely see the innovation here. This is such a cool concept. So I did
your bottle with your name on it, your blend, $45.
Yeah, so this one is my first bottle with my name on it, guys. You guys, it's not quite a store pick, but hey, it's pretty freaking close. So this is labeled as Bourbon Bytes Private Stock. So I'll show you guys. I screenshotted my results after I did the quiz. You guys are, like I said, take it yourselves. Let me know in the chat what your results are. But mine that I actually ended up getting bottled was, this is gonna cover our faces for a second, but I just want to go over this. So my result was 31% of the 200-year oak, 30% of European oak, 31% cherry wood, and 8% smoked. Like I said, I just wanted to be a little bit smoky on the end there, so I had a little. So
that's going to be that. So then you can see the tasting notes, and you also get custom cocktail recommendations for yours, so that they're going to be there. So this is going to be a big ass whiskey. Okay, there's going to be a lot of complexity, a lot of flavor to it, and I mean it's only 90 proof, but again, in this case, I got to keep the price down, and so I have to take the proof down a little bit, but. So I'd be interested to see what you think of it.
Yeah. So I saw a couple questions. So I saw a good one from Whiskey Mountains. Oh, she was saying, so is this all the same whiskey that's then finished differently, or are these different whiskeys that are put into these barrels for finishing?
In order to be a bourbon, I mean, I think I've become a lawyer by the time I've through this stuff. To be a bourbon, you can't mix the mash bills. Except for under certain circumstances, and it raises the price. And so it's the same 21% rye bourbon, but they're all finished with different woods. Gotcha. And that's also part of why we had to do it the way we do it, because we have people that buy it, and then they want to buy more bottles, and they're requiring us to do it. And we're franchising this to people who want to create a bourbon blender, a woodcraft bourbon blender shop, or to distilleries, wineries, and breweries. Our first one will open in Louisville in a couple of weeks. And so that eventually, anywhere in the country that you go, you'll be able to get your bourbon on tap, and you'll be able to buy a bottle locally. And that's our vision, is to take this out and to help the craft people make more money, because this is something the big-ass guys can't do. Their heads would blow up.
Right.
But this is something perfect for craft people. So
for sure. Bourbon says the TTB must be having fun with those labels. So I'm looking.
Oh my God! You seem pretty smart. Begin.
I like what you did though. So this is labeled as bourbon whiskey finished with wood, and if they're okay with that, I mean that works for me.
Well, and the other thing is on the back side of that, there's a QR code. So the minute you did that, there's a whole automated process that we built, and it prints the QR code and the UPC code on it, because we have to disclose, and we had a big debate with the TTB about that, because when you go into that, you can get to see your recipe of what it is.
Oh,
you have to have disclosure, and so this was a whole rigmarole to get.
Oh my gosh, well that's awesome. That's all that you were able to get that approved. You guys, the QR code's here on the back. That's really cool, and that's really innovative. So let's go ahead and try the Bourbon Bytes blend. So have you done this yourself? What were your results like if you had
Oh,
done
I've
it?
got about 6 of them. So
Oh, a lot of them.
I've got one because I have a smoked old fashioned I like to make. I've got one for Manhattans that I like. I've got a sipping one for the summer. I've got a winter one that is evocative of some of the Canadians because I'm Canadian American, so I like the Canadian stuff too.
Mhm.
So I've got a whole collection of recipes for, depending upon my mood and what I'm feeling like drinking.
Yeah, on the nose, I think I'm getting that little bit of that smoke. So what was the wood that was? Do you guys use a smoked oak? I closed out of that screen.
Yeah, so
Smoked
we
oak. So
just yeah,
what do you do
so
with
we
that one?
distill the smoke. We distill the smoke, throwing away the heads and tails. So like you distill whiskey and you take the middle cut, we do the same thing with the smoke, and we smoke the wood and then we put the wood in.
So for me that doesn't understand that, what do you mean by we distill the oak? Or the smoke,
Well, we
sorry.
invented it. We invented it. In fact, we've got a patent that was granted on it.
Oh, nice.
So you start a smoke, and we use a 3 woods hickory. We got like 3 different woods in it, and then the smoke comes off, but some of it can be kind of gnarly. So you bleed that part off, and then you take a middle cut and you run that through. I think in that one it's American oak that we do it on, and then that's how you get the smoke in.
Wow. So it's like distilled like liquid smoke kind of?
Yeah. Only cleaner. I mean, it doesn't have
Oh
the
yeah, yeah.
preservative.
That's not the best wording, but
So, but
like
yeah,
that's
same concept, but better.
that's really fascinating. I had no idea. So that's I definitely on the nose. I get that little bit of smokiness. It's not overpowering at all. It's not like I'm smelling a peated scotch or anything.
Good.
But it's got like a nice little like background smoke there. It's very enticing. So I'm
Well,
gonna go
and
ahead and
we
have a sip.
purposely, I mean, we could have smoked it with peat, but we chose to do basically barbecue woods because we don't do clones, and we wanted to do something original. And so it's more of an American barbecue smoke. If you take that up, the full smoke that we have, I mean, it's like barbecue. It's like you're at a
Mhm.
barbecue, you know. Um, and so we wanted to have something that was uniquely American and not try to clone the Scots.
Yeah, so I just took a sip of it. So, like I said, the smoke is still there. It's kind of like a little bit on the back end. It's kind of
Yep.
complementing the finish a good bit. In terms of the cherry wood, what does that typically impart flavor wise? Like since that's not part of the original like
Generally,
Dexter.
cherry would. So the way you think about putting a whiskey together is like a musical chord. So a cheap whiskey is going to be like one note. A really good whiskey is like a giant pipe organ being hit with multiple layers. Okay, and the
Mm-hmm.
cherry wood gives you the high notes. It gives you a brightness to it and a cleanness to it. The maple wood gives you sort of a smoothness in the back end. You get a lot of richness from the European, and the 200-year really gives you that finish, that epic finish on the back end, and also a boldness of flavor at the front.
Yeah, I think that would also work really well in a cocktail. I think that like you said, I haven't really done much smoked cocktails. So do you have like a personal device that actually smokes it?
Um, I just got one from Christmas for Christmas. Somebody
Oh
gave me
yeah.
a smoke machine, but our whiskey. I mean, when you have the full one, I mean, you've got just a small amount in it. When you have the full
Mhm.
smoke, it's like overwhelming smoke, and so we get the smoke from that, and that we put it in. Although I'm interested to try the smoke gun. I've never used them before.
So I've kind of had a it was a $18 one on Amazon. It has like the little like it's like got a little tube and you just have to feed it into like a but the thing that it didn't come with was the bowl to kind of contain the smoke. So the first time we did it, we just made so much smoke in our kitchen and that we almost set off a fire alarm. So don't recommend doing that.
Yeah.
But if you have a container for it, it actually is really cool. I just haven't used it very often. So I need to do more smoked cocktails. That sounds really good.
Yeah, the big smoked. I mean, we have a number of smoked cocktails. We do a thing called My Old Fashioned My Way.
Hmm.
And we have an 1862 and then the modern one. But we offer, do you want to have it regular or paddle wheel? Or paddle wheel has a brother product called Tall Stacks, as in the tall stacks of the steamboats. And so you can
Gotcha.
either get it regular or smoked, and then you can go down through and make the choices that you customize old fashioned, and that's really fun. It's really fun for people.
Yeah, I mean, I like you said, people don't get the opportunity every day to do these kind of, crafting their, perfect whiskey just in general. I think it's a very fun thing, especially if you get a chance to do it in person. So you said you can do it at the distillery. You guys also have like an at-home kit that people can do as well. Is
Yep.
that where they will submit the recipe to you and they can actually buy bottles of that?
Yeah, although they get 1.2 liters of alcohol, so they can actually even mix them up themselves. They get plenty in the
Oh,
kits.
okay, gotcha. So it's not just
And
like small
but
samples. It's
yeah,
like
these
bigger.
are good size,
Okay.
200 ml bottles. So she gets 200 ml bottles. But we're going to be opening. I mean, if you know a distillery, brewery, winery, let me know because we've got a whole package for them. That's again, like everything I have, I'm cheap, so it doesn't cost them a stupid amount of money to be able to open. But we hope to add this under their brand name all over the country. So eventually, you'll have people all over the country where you can come get your own whiskey, your own bourbon.
That's really cool. So that leads into what I was going to ask next. Like, what's next for you guys? I know you mentioned a rye whiskey that you're working on. Is that going to be the next big push with the
Yeah,
Dexter
so
brand?
so 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 the, so we're doing two things. One is we've got a big push with the blending machines out in at retail that
Hmm.
we're going to do this year, so people can get their own stuff on tap, um, weddings and parties and all that kind of stuff, obviously.
Hmm.
But the other thing we've got is a line called the Great Grains. So on Macallan, part of how we built Macallan is you do a small run of something that you wouldn't have very much of it. You make a lot of noise about it, and it'd be gone, and then you do it again. And
Hmm.
so what we're about to do is we're going to do the Great Grains: wheat, corn, rye, and barley. So spring, summer, winter, fall. And so it's spring is wheat, summer's bourbon, a unique bourbon, a rye for the fall, and then a single malt for the winter, which is a single malt for bourbon drinkers. So it's
Oh,
a
I'm very
barley,
intrigued.
but really clean, and it crushes it. It crushes all four of them. The rye is epic. The wheat is so it makes for a great set that if you've got friends over, and in fact, we're going to offer it to people if they want to, where we've got it, that they can buy all four at once. So they make sure that they get a reservation, they can get the four, because it's a phenomenal. I did it last Saturday night with a group. We tested it because we test everything because that's where we are. And I had, there was a guy had a birthday party and a bunch of bourbon drinkers, and I had them taste all four, and they lost their minds because you really get to then see the differences of all that are very, all double gold. I mean, all amazingly good whiskey. So
So those are like 100% that grain they're into each of
yeah,
those.
yeah,
Wow,
and generally
that's
95%, like 95% wheat, because you need a little bit of barley for the fermentation. But
well, especially with rye and also rye. We hear rye is very difficult to work with. So
95% rye. Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what it is. So
gotcha. We had a super chat come in from Joseph Brazo, all the way from Washington State. Hopefully, you're staying safe. I know they're also getting winter storms. It's been a while. Cheers to you, Joseph. Thank you so much for that. Well, that's awesome. I'm very, very excited. I think that I like innovation and I like seeing brands being like, most brands, like you said, the bigger brands would kind of see this, whiskey machine and they'd be like, they kind of stick their nose up at it. But I love that. I think it's super cool and it's super unique. Like you said, parties, weddings, having people having the opportunity to actually do their own blend. That's going to get someone excited about bourbon. And that's all I want. I want people to get excited about whiskey. So I think if that's
well,
a way to bring it to people.
and the thing I like is it is the way it used to be. I mean, brands didn't exist until after Prohibition.
Hmm.
Before that, I mean, look up the pre-Prohibition. There was so many freaking brands because everybody had their own.
Mhm.
And and whiskey was of the people. And to me, what I love is the look on people's faces because they come in and they go, "Oh, I'm never gonna be able to do this. I can't do this. I'm not an expert," because they've been told everything on the Bourbon Trail that that's the way it is. And then
Mhm.
they go through it, and you see them light up, and they go, "Oh my God, I made this. This is incredible."
Mhm.
And to me, that's the most fun of all. I mean, that's why we do it because it's just so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Doug, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find Brain Brew and just all these brands? Like, where can people find you guys on the web?
Yeah, just Brain Brew Whiskey is the easy place to go. DougHall.com can get you all the places too. We got all the typical crap. But Brain Brew Whiskey is the easiest to find us, and we've got all the stuff there. And if you sign up, you'll hear about other stuff and where we're going to different places and stuff like that. Clifton, by the way, you're also going to be able to go. I'm going to enter you for it. I'll take care of your entry. We have a competition coming up with medals.
Okay.
Where all the people that have done custom bourbons can put their recipe in to a competition. And we're going to give gold, silver, and bronze medals. It's a blind tasting. We'll use the machine because it's easy because we can just make pours real quick. And we've got a group of celebrity judges that are going to taste them. And so we'll see how you do.
That is awesome. Are you guys gonna do any kind of like live stream? Are you guys gonna broadcast that? I want to watch. I'm curious now.
We'll do the final announcement. So we'll do a first round of stuff, and then we'll have a group of sort of the finalists, and we'll have them on the various blending machines. You know, they'll be on the blending machines for the finals. So
that's awesome. Well, thank you for entering me. I look forward. I'm very competitive, so I like. Steven's like, ooh, medals. Like I'm in. So okay, these guys are all rooting for me. So very cool. I will keep you guys updated on that once I hear if we want a medal or not. But Doug, thank you so much for coming on. This has been an absolute treat. I love that I finally have a bottle with my name on it. That's a first for me. So thank you for making it happen. And again, thank you for coming on.
And thank you. And folks, help support your local craft people. You know, I mean, we make really great whiskey now. We made really shitty whiskey for a number of years. Stay with them, support them, help them. We're all getting smarter, okay? We're going against Goliaths out there. And they're good people. I'm not saying they're bad people, but we are gnats in this world, and we need all the support we can get. And things like the podcast and that, and folks going out there, visit your local distilleries, talk to them, give them honest feedback, be nice, be polite, and teach them. But the good ones we're all working harder to be better and better and better. So support us. We need to bring whiskey back to the people.
I'm 100% on board with that. Yes, you guys, check out your local distilleries. I'm sure no matter where you are, there's going to be something. I'm even here in Southern California. We have like 4 or 5 different ones out here. Have not tried them all, but that inspires me to reach out to them. So,
well, and everybody, no matter where you are, you can get our Noble Oak product. If you just go to Noble Oak Bourbon, there's a product finder. Noble Oak, I mean, we're on our way to 70 to 100,000 cases this year. Wow. So, I mean, it's gargantuan, okay? But you can find Noble Oak everywhere, and it's an epic product. It's a phenomenal product. So you can pick up Noble Oak wherever you are.
I have not tried it, so I'm gonna have to keep an eye out. I'm gonna have to keep an eye out for that bottle. But yeah, very cool. I've heard a lot about it though, so I've heard really good things. So awesome. Well, Doug, thank you again for coming on, and you guys keep an eye out for Brain Brew Whiskey because they're doing some incredible things. So cheers, y'all. I will see y'all on Saturday on Twitch for a gaming stream. But until then, check out the episode of the podcast coming out tomorrow morning. I'm reviewing Knob Creek 12-year and 12-year cask strengths. So should be a fun episode. So Doug, thank you again. And everyone have a wonderful night.